Welcome back to the Business Simple podcast. It's your host, James. I am very excited for this one. I have, it's Kirsten?
Yes,
Kirsten. Sorry, I have dyslexia and we have a staff member called Kirsten Kirsten Ellis from Global PC. That's embarrassing. That's the roughest intro I've done in a while. You told me you were nervous. Kirsten has an amazing story. I had a really, really good time looking into some of the articles that I could read about you and other things. And Global PC, obviously being from Christchurch, is a brand that jumps to mind straight away when I think of it. So thank you for jumping on your first podcast and coming and spending the time with me today.
Thank you for having me.
No worries. So you've listened to a couple of these episodes before. The way we tend to sort of start is just with a little bit of kind of your story, just back from as far as you feel is relevant, and yeah, sort of pull it through to up until where you are today. If I have any questions that I feel like the listeners will want, I'll just hop in there. So cool.
Yeah.
Great.
So I mean, personally wise, I grew up in Christchurch. My parents were a pretty normal family. Mum was a nurse. Dad actually went to uni when I was young, and retrained to be an accountant and opened his own accountancy practice. And so, yeah, pretty normal childhood. I started working straight out of school, and I realised pretty quickly that I loved cars, loved travel, and they were expensive things. So I was pretty keen to work really hard, and I realised that I could have fun at work, and why wouldn't you just keep working when you're getting paid to have fun? So by the time I was sort of 21, 22, I was doing a couple of jobs. I think at one point I was doing 3 jobs. And yeah, just continued on, went to Wellington, did a couple of years in Australia, and then returned to Christchurch because I met my partner in Sydney. And came home for him. And yeah, I've been here ever since.
Nice. A lot of the like that work ethic overarching theme, whatever the reason is, seems to be. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of these episodes. Seems to be a really big trend across all the people that have come across here. It's always been for different reasons. I can relate to you a little bit with the liking cars one. That's definitely a big part of what helps keep me up some mornings. Where do you think that sort of came from? Was it just literally the want to do things, or have you always sort of been like that?
I don't know, because we didn't do a lot of travel and we had a pretty normal vehicles and things. I don't know where that came from, but as soon as I earned money, travel and vehicles were kind of things that just really appealed to me, and they were both expensive things. And I enjoyed working. So I just was straight away like, okay, how much money can I earn? And then the more I did, the more I realised how much I loved working.
Yeah, nice.
And so yeah, it just has been, and I think I hate downtime. So I've always been someone that when I've had a few spare hours, it's like, what can I do with this that is productive? And so I would put my hand up for another shift, or because I worked in hospitality. So it's really easy to work a lot of hours when you're in hospitality because they're always wanting more people.
Hospo is also, I think, a great starting point because you do get to see the best and worst of people. I did from kitchen hand through to sous chef, then front of house, bartending, like waitering, all that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, like I spilt a pint on someone one day, like just little things like that when I was younger, it was so good to learn some of those skills and be like, oh, I need to navigate this tricky situation or whatever it is.
I think the other thing with hospitality, I was in tourism, so I was in hotels, but I did across everything, is age is really not important. You can be promoted really young, and I think the hospitality industry just does promote really young, so you can have really good goals from a really young age. And I think that's really different to other industries where you're not really getting those opportunities in your early 20s. And so straight away you're sort of like, I want to be up here, and you can actually get there.
If you just work hard. Which is a nice, and because business is very similar to that, right? Like if you just put the work in, generally speaking, you get what you should out of it, at least at some point in time. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer than you want to wait, but it generally comes around. Nice. And so obviously hospitality to sort of where you're sitting now is a big transition. So you moved back to Christchurch.
So I was in tourism. I went sort of into the sales side of tourism, and I was national, or not national, I was a regional sales manager for a division of Air New Zealand, which was an IT company, when the earthquakes hit. And so I was made redundant because I think Air New Zealand very smartly could foresee that the tourism industry in Canterbury was going to dive. So within 10 days after the earthquake, I was made redundant. I was flown to Auckland and made redundant. And I think that was wise on their part, but at the same time, I sort of had to pivot into something else. So my husband had Global PC and temporarily decided to go work there. And I'm still there now. So I think I've now been, 14, 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah, right. And what was the initial role that you started at there?
Just in retail, but I knew I didn't want to go stay in sales. The sales roles that I was doing, I wanted to be more involved with the action. I think you get frustrated in sales because you can't make change.
Yeah.
You're promising change or you're promising something, but you're not involved in the delivery.
Yeah.
So I actually started working in the management side, and I realised I loved numbers. My dad was an accountant, and spreadsheets had always been my thing. So I went and did an accounting diploma, and so took over the finance and HR side. And that's still kind of where I sit with my role now. So I'm not a qualified IT engineer.
Yeah.
Don't have a huge amount of IT knowledge, although I'm sort of getting there. But yeah.
Yeah, sure. And there's so many different, I think about this often, especially with my friends that have got like business partners, or there's a few of them in the business, and they've got sort of different skill sets, and how jealous I can be of that at points in time, because I'm not accounting, I'm not HR, like that stuff is as difficult as it could possibly be for me to do something, but the sales, the campaign strategy, that kind of thing comes really naturally.
Yeah, so you're the creative side.
Yeah. And I've sort of forced myself. Everyone at some point in time has to learn every part of their business, right? It's just the way that it is for whatever reason. But you just find there's these things that you click with that are better. And for me, it's just that. It's just like talking about what we do, or working on what we do, working with people who are doing what we do, like. That strategy and sales piece is just so much more exciting.
Yes, and my husband was that role very much. He was a big ideas person.
Yeah.
And so he was able to just constantly have ideas, thinking of new things, and I was able to back that up with working out if they were feasible, and then how we can fund them and how we can keep them running. And
yeah, so it is that kind of that partnership, similar to some of the people that I know, where there's the practical and the sales, or there's whatever that sort of balance is. And Global PC obviously grew really quickly to being, I've heard of it. I think especially in Christchurch was quite well known. What was that period like as it was going uphill for you guys and you're involved in the business?
So we've just hit 25 years in business.
Yeah, wow, congratulations.
So that's a big deal for us.
Yeah.
And the first probably 10 years of that was retail. And about that sort of mid 5 years, we did retail and corporate IT.
Yeah.
And we realised that corporate IT was probably slightly more of a passion. It was also sort of an up-and-coming industry, and there was a lot more opportunities in it. So slowly over time, we phased out retail. And also we had the likes of your PBTX coming in, and so it was sort of a very different industry to when we started out, and we were like the only ones. So the last 10 years, we've just done corporate IT.
Yeah, right. Cool. And do you find that with that you need less customers? I'm assuming they're more valuable, you can build a bit more relationship.
It's a really different product because it's a service product versus, going and having a store and having staff and having to have stock. So we have a team, we probably have a bigger team now, but we've transitioned so I think we're 5 times bigger than we were during lockdown. So, it's
good growth.
Yeah, it's huge growth. And we've got to deliver that. But our typical client now is someone in contract with us who we're delivering services and Microsoft licensing or IT consulting.
Yeah, cool. Nice. And you've sort of steered that transition. You've got good people internally that are helping with that stuff. I know you mentioned it's like accounts and HR as your...
Yes, so we made a conscious decision to close retail.
Yeah.
And it was actually quite costly when we did it. We had to break leases and fire sale stock.
Yeah.
But we had this sort of revenue model where we were 50%, our revenue was coming from corporate IT, 50% was coming from retail, but our profit was 90% from corporate IT and 10% from retail.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make sense to have the stores, the stock and the staff when we were only getting 10% of our revenue from that. And I think too, just running a corporate IT side versus trying to run a 7-day retail operation and holding hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of stock, we just made the decision to wind retail up.
Did you find that decision hard?
No, I didn't actually.
Yeah, right.
The only thing that was probably a bit tricky with it was we decided to do it a lot quicker than we'd planned.
Yeah.
So it was sort of in the pipeline the next time the leases got renewed. But the numbers just weren't stacking up. Yeah.
And do you think your ability to make a decision like that quickly or just go, is that accounting background? Is that like, are you quite a logical thinker? Or?
I think it was a bit of a life. It was a bit of a life situation as well. Yeah. So there was how do we segue into this? So probably about how many years in? Maybe 7 years into running the business with my husband, he died.
Yeah.
And that was unexpected. And so I had this sort of decision to close the entire business, to sell it, to hand it over. And I decided to jump in. I was already working there. I was already running the finance side. So I decided to run it, sort of throw myself into it and just see buy myself some time before I made a decision.
Yeah, right.
And so that decision sort of came about at that point. So I closed it. He died in the October and I closed it in the June.
Yeah.
But I sort of made that decision pretty quickly because I just didn't feel I could handle both.
Yeah.
And I thought if I have a chance of staying on and trying to run this, retail is too much for me. Don't have a passion for it. It's not bringing in a massive amount of profit. So I just thought, actually, let's cut retail. It was hard because the team we had were awesome and we'd had them for a really long time.
Yeah.
So that human side was really hard, but we managed to either re-employ or really look after everyone that was involved in that process.
Yeah, wow.
But so the retail, so it wasn't, because it was a life situation that I needed to look after.
Yeah, right. And that period, I suppose, I mean, I can't even begin to imagine, obviously, but that period afterwards of acclimatization and trying to take on all these things, and you think about any key person in any business and the void that would leave. And you have a family as well, three kids.
2 kids.
Two? Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, so they were 3 and 7, or 4 and 7, just turned 4 and 7.
Yeah.
So I had a really big incentive to have a business, if I was going to keep it, that was manageable for me.
What a incredible glass half full way to look at that. That's
Yeah, I wanted. I mean, at that point, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, but I was like, if I've got a chance of keeping this and running it, I need to be passionate about it. Mm-hmm. I need to make it manageable for me. And so, that was all part of that process. But I also straight away was looking for business partners.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. And did you bring anyone on, or you?
Yeah, so we had a general manager who'd been with us for 12 years, and he was him and I basically did the closures of the retail stores, and so we were just sort of working together as if we were business partners. Mm-hmm. I spoke to him and his wife about coming on board officially, and they had to think about it because it was not something they'd planned. It's obviously unexpected for them, but they decided they were quite keen to do that. So he came on board as a business partner in that first year, and he's obviously still there. And then the two of us decided we needed one more, mainly because our skill set was so different, but there was still a gap in our skill set. So I was very financially skilled. My business partner, Alan, was very technically skilled. Mm-hmm. And what we really needed was someone to grow the business. So sort of a bit more of a sales strategy type person, but someone who was really social. And
yeah, nice. Yeah. And your time at that time would have just been kids in business.
I used business as a distraction for probably the first 3 months. Yeah. And which was just a coping mechanism, but it also enabled me to work out, was this a long-term thing for me? Yeah. I loved it. Yeah. Which I think said a lot considering how tough life was at that time.
Yeah.
So that sort of showed me that I can do this and I want to do this. Mm-hmm. So then it was just a case of finding that third person, and which we did within probably the year after that.
Nice.
And we've now been together the three of us have been running for 6 years.
Yeah, cool. And did that person come from within the company as well?
No, so we asked around. We had a couple of chats with people who had heard about it and were interested, but just didn't feel quite right about. We contacted him on LinkedIn and just said, hey, we've got a mutual friend who said you might be looking to move. He was like, look, I'm probably looking for a bigger opportunity, but I'm happy to catch up. And then sort of decided after a few chats that he would come on board as an employee. And then just kind of see how it would go. But straight away, the three of us worked really well together.
Yeah, nice. Cool. And what a nice, it's like try before you buy, like bring it in, it's much lower commitment or something like that.
Yeah, and we're similar ages. We've all got kids. So we all wanted, I think that was really key to there being three of us because we all wanted life balance. And there's no point sort of getting to 60 and having all this free time when you can do it when your kids are young.
Yeah.
So all three of us are pretty good at finishing early to pick kids up from school or take them to swimming or dance or, you know, that's really important to us. And we all three of us make sure that we do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool for them because they're dads. So to have that in our company flows down to all our staff.
Because there is a real culture around that just not being what dads do, right? Like it's like I've got an 11-month-old who's about to turn 1, Archie, and it's like having a concussion grenade set off. And like, because you the whole time you're sort of, especially that first 6 months, and then I've rolled from the first 6 months, which is just like, oh my God, what's going on, into probably the hardest 6 months of business I've ever had straight afterwards. So it's been this like thing where I've been trying to just like leave the office at 5 and go home and just hang out with him and my partner since, and it's such an underrated, you know, it's so easy to get caught in, I suppose people call it the rat race. It's probably not so much the rat race when it's working for yourself, but just to get caught up in the day by day, just whatever's going on, making sure you try not to do that is an awesome thing to have within kind of the way your company operates.
And I think being able to do it without guilt, because it doesn't work if you feel guilty for doing it. It only works if you feel good about doing it.
Yeah. And that I think also comes from just like, you know, if you're doing a great job of the stuff you're doing when you're there, it's so much easier. Because for me, I get more of the internal guilt than probably anyone else. I think everyone else probably sees how much I do. But for me, I'm like, oh, I could have done this as well. I could have done this. Or you've got the infinite list, the list that continuously grows and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a hard balancing act. I think as long as I prioritize it, every now and again something will pop up, right? You have to do the late night or whatever it is, but prioritizing it makes it feel a lot better.
And I think setting the standard for everyone in the whole company to do it makes it better too, because I think you don't feel like you're the one that's not there. Because everyone's having a turn at not being there.
Yeah, nice. And so the business partner thing, that's all gone really well?
So we're 6 years in. It really is brilliant. We have 3 really different skill sets. We work really well as a director level, so we do all our key decision making together, our strategy, our planning, but our actual 3 roles are quite separate and we don't have a huge amount of crossover. So Al runs the technical team, so he delivers what we do. Mark's growth, pricing, strategy, and relationships, and then I'm the finance HR side. So it works really well because we can just work on whatever we need to be doing and then catch up about the sort of strategy, decision-making stuff, or when there's issues or whatever to deal with. Yeah,
cool. And so you mentioned obviously you've gone through a pretty fast growth period, 5 times since COVID, is that right?
Yeah.
Has that been due to Mark and him just kind of getting busy from a sales perspective?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think we had 7 staff in lockdown and we've just employed our 18th.
Yeah, cool.
And some of that initial growth was Mark's really social. He knows everyone in the industry. Yeah. He really believed in our product. So straight away when he came in, he gave the products a bit of an overhaul and made sure that they were really good products. And then just the confidence to go out there and sell those products has been really easy for him, I think, because of that.
Nice.
So yeah, it's been a really what's the word for it? Just really organic, but really fast.
Yeah. I mean, 5 is a lot. 5 is a lot. Yeah. And it sounds like you're doing it in a really efficient way as well. If it's sort of 2.5 times staff, but 5 times everything else is a really good way to be doing everything too. It is easy. We've got, I think we're about 20 people here. It's fluctuating up and down a little bit at the moment, a lot more than I'd like for it to be being, but it's a lot of weight, and it's hard to do that in a way where you don't accidentally wind up with 2 times as many people but 1.5 times the revenue or something like that, because you do find you can hire a bit quickly. I saw on your website that you guys have a really good average staff tenure as well, or there's a number of staff that have been there for a really long time as well, which probably speaks to that culture you're creating and all those sorts of things as well. Yeah,
I'm really focused on everyone trying to have balance, and I think that makes for a happy team. And we just have really strong wellness policies around them being able to take time off when they need time off, and we don't refer to our sick leave as sick leave, we refer to it as wellness. And the reason we do that is because we don't, when you sort of have to call in sick and you are dreading sending that message, and half the time people are, I have had a funny tummy, or just, we're adults and we just want to be able to say, you know what, I'm not feeling great, or I'm tired, I'm going to take tomorrow off. And not feel guilty if that day then is at the beach with your dog, or with a friend out for lunch, because sometimes that's what you need, and then they come back the next day and they're a better employee for it, but they haven't had to be sneaky or lie about it or pretend they've got a funny tummy or something. So I think that's been really important for us to have that ability for people to be honest and say when they're not doing okay.
Yeah, that's cool. That's really cool, because it is quite hard from like a legal perspective. Like stress isn't you can have leave for bereavement, you can have leave for this, you can have leave for that, but you can't actually have leave for stress. Like, that's not legally, and so it would be classed as sick leave if someone does that, which I suppose is a little tough. Like, sometimes things are just hard and you just need a day. I think everyone knows that, and I mean, I probably could do with a little bit more empathy, I suppose, towards this stuff, because often my response is through, not to stop. So if I'm really under pressure, I just go more. But I don't think the average person necessarily works or thinks like that. And so it's a refreshing way to look at it. I think that wellness thing's clever. And like you said, you don't want the guilt. You want people.
Because, and then I think too, being able to plan, because we are service delivery, being able to plan when you're going to have someone off is far easier for us than finding out at 8 a.m. So it's worked really well. And our staff, if they don't take all of their wellness days, they can use them as annual leave, but it's effectively the same thing anyway. They can use them for any reason, and they can use them in advance. So
nice. And it's just the 10 a year. You do the same amount, but
we just do the 10, but it sort of becomes 6 weeks leave that you can just kind of use flexibly in a way, because of the way that it's structured. Yeah,
it's clever. I really like it. It's like you said, just treating people like adults. It's whatever they need to do, and whatever's important at the time is important at the time.
I think it's meant that people are really open in the office, because no one rings their IT company when things are going well.
So, that's a good point.
Our guys are dealing, most of the time, the phone calls they're getting, something's wrong, people are stressed, something's broken, something needs fixing. It's always urgent, or it's always important to the client. So they're not in a job where it's super relaxing. So I think it's created a situation where people can say, you know what, I'm not doing great, and I might need to take a day. But they also can tidy up their stuff and then push themselves one more day to tidy up and say, look, I'm going to take Friday and take a long weekend.
Yeah, cool. What other things are you sort of doing from a cultural perspective? Because it sounds like that's a really big focus, like specifically for you and the business. Is wellness days the kid thing? Is there other stuff that you guys are?
Oh, I'm not sure.
A lot of it probably just comes quite naturally.
Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
We I just, the only reason I think about it is because as a part of that kind of, I mentioned that last 6 months that we're kind of on the tail end of now, and that being really tough. Culture took a massive hit. Like, it's just, and it stems down from me through managerial team, and there's just all this pressure, and everything's hard, and you've got client churn and stuff's not going good, and like everyone can kind of feel it. I've really just found that like just being present and human and communicating with people and that sort of things.
And asking, like last year we sent all the team a survey asking if there was a couple of things they could have that were absolutely anything at all that would make their job easier, what would they be? And we supplied them.
Yeah.
And they were really varied.
Yeah.
And, you know, right down from headphones to a phone to a chair. Like they were just like things that I would have thought they might have come and asked if they'd wanted, but they just hadn't.
Yeah.
And so every person put stuff out. So one asked for a training course, one asked to work from home one day a fortnight. Like they were really, really varied, but it was really rewarding. It felt like Santa handing them out, like when things were arriving, and it wasn't expensive, you know, sort of maybe 5-10 grand by the time we paid for training courses and things, and just made everyone feel supported and happy. And and it was in that survey we gave them opportunity to give feedback on us and culture and what they wanted, and we actually did end up introducing a work from home policy after that. So based on some of that feedback.
Yeah, and how does that policy work?
It's good. Like most people, probably half the team have now applied for it, and we try and have it so we've got one working from home 3 days a week. Some are just every second Tuesday. Like it's just depending on what they needed. A couple of them they're not like home days, so they still might be out doing clients and stuff, but they're based from home. Yeah, nice. And it's just less downtime for them traveling, and the ability to just have a little bit more balance.
Yeah, and it can be, I mean, I yesterday had and this was probably just what everyone else normal would do, but it's out of habit for me, but it can be really inefficient going back to the office. Like I had a meeting finished, I just went straight home and just made a couple of calls from home, and I was there at like 4:30 or whatever, which I think any logical person would do, but typically I'd drive back to the office and do an hour of work and go home at 6 or do something silly like that to try to kind of make the most of the trip back in. Once again, it probably just comes back to that treating people like adults piece is pretty important, just letting them manage their stuff. And like I think if you give them tools that they see are tools and not necessarily micromanagement things, then they'll use those tools to be more efficient, and that empowerment to make that decision I think is one of the tools that works really well. Yeah, nice. And before we started this, we spoke a little bit about Ice House, which you've just completed, and I'm still tossing and turning on starting. I've been very close a couple of times. Can you run me through quickly what that is, how it works, and how you found it?
So Ice House is it's actually a charity run out of Auckland that has been around. I think they must have been around for 20, 30, maybe even more than that years, and they support entrepreneurs or business owners in their business, because I think most of the time when you're a business owner or an entrepreneur, you're flying solo or close to flying solo, and you don't have a peer network. So they run programs, and the course that I had my eye on was called the Owner Management Program, and it's a residential program in Auckland. It's pretty expensive, and it's quite a big time commitment of nearly a week a month for 6 months. So I sort of had my eye on it for quite a while. My kids were very little. I was running this business, and I wanted the support of the course, but I wasn't sure about the commitment of it. So I saw a LinkedIn ad for a semi-scholarship for it. So I applied for that, and I told myself if I get the scholarship, I'll do the course. Got the scholarship, and so I had to commit to doing the course. So I did it last July. I was started last July, finished this February, and it was incredible. Really eye-opening mentally. Sort of it's quite a personal journey as well as a business journey. I think I very much went into it thinking it would be a business journey, but it's all about how you run. I mean, you're your business's biggest asset and your business's biggest liability. Yeah. And if you can understand when you're running as a liability and you're depleted, or you don't know something, and you can know when you need to get help, it's just such an important part of being a business owner. Yeah. And so, I did 6 or 7 trips up to Auckland. We did one to Queenstown, and I've now got a really awesome alumni network as well that's come out of that. Yeah, cool. I definitely would recommend it. They're really good sales. They'll be calling you now.
Yeah, they'll be on it. And because they have like a minimum criteria or something to start. So So the one I did is minimum 3 mil turnover, maybe minimum 10 staff. Yeah.
So they have different criteria for the courses, and I think that's really helpful because you have to share a lot on the course, including your financials.
Yeah.
So there's panels where you go in and you go through your financials so you can really understand. And actually, that was I have an accounting background and I thought I was good with financials, but one of the biggest things I learned was that when you're a service-based business, you shouldn't really be looking at your P&L, you should be focusing on your balance sheet.
Yeah.
And it was such a simple concept, but it just hadn't really been something that I was focusing on in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So it was you literally put yourself out into the panel with your goals, where you want to take the business, where you're not doing well, what financials you've got, and people just pick it apart in a really honest way.
Yeah. I've heard it's quite a brutal way
It
too.
can be.
Yeah, they're pretty, yeah. Honest is probably a nice way of putting it. That balance sheet thing's interesting. I couldn't even read a balance sheet if my life depended on it. I have an advisory board set up now, and we meet bi-monthly, and one of the people on it is my accountant, and he brings my balance sheet every time, and he's sort of like, this is good or this is bad, basically depending on how things are. I just don't even.
And that's the thing, because I think when you're supplying a service, most of the resources you're using to supply that service are assets, and your assets aren't really necessarily reflected on your P&L unless you're depreciating really regularly and running some sort of cost on there. Whereas when you're holding stock, that's an asset, comes onto your P&L, you can see really clearly how you're doing.
Yeah.
And so I think that understanding for service-based businesses to be looking more at what it costs to run that service, which is going to be asset-based resources.
Yeah.
Just that was really eye-opening for us.
Yeah, wow.
And showed us actually that probably we were doing really well because sometimes on the P&L we couldn't really see that till the end of the year when we depreciated all of our IT gear and because we've got our own private cloud. So that's a huge asset cost, obviously, but we were only depreciating that once a year and having to wait to see how we were doing.
Yeah, sure. Interesting. That is a really good point. I'm going to need to learn how to read balance sheets after this. That's definitely on my to-do list.
When you go back to Brutal, we talked about growth and we talked about growing into other areas of New Zealand, and they were really brutal with that and refined our idea a lot. And we've ended up just a month ago going into Auckland, and it was a much more refined idea based on the feedback that I got from those panels. They were like, you don't need a branch, you don't need this, you don't need to go out and buy a business. Just start small, have a good person, grow your way into it. And that person's working out of the Icehouse co-working space. So.
Oh, cool. Yeah. That's a nice segue. Yeah. And because we did the Auckland thing. I mean, we had a period of time where I thought I just knew everything, and this was probably pre-COVID. Maybe just afterwards, 2021, 2022. And we went to Auckland because we just couldn't be stopped here. Like we doubled every year for 4 or 5 years in a row or something like that. And you get to that point where you're almost too big for your boots. It's like dangerous. We went to Auckland and then we created our own little mini recession in here by biting off more than we could chew. And we went from 5 to 15 people in a year. That probably sounded like advice I could have done with as well, I think, at that time. It is hard, I think, especially if you're entrepreneurial and ambitious and you want to go out and do these amazing things, to sometimes check yourself a little bit and be like, maybe if I try to do all of this at once, it's not going to go well, or there's a more conservative, safer way to go about this.
Because you're excited, and so you just sort of think, well, what if we just bought a business out there, or what if we just opened a branch, or we had 9 reasonably decent clients, so we were servicing from here anyway, we sort of were hoping that we could but they were like, just slow down. And 100% that's been the right decision. And so we're just going to slowly grow into that. But we're actually rebranding at the moment as well. And so growing into Auckland, because the Global PC brand is known here in Christchurch, but it's actually a wee bit of an odd name for what we do. And it's quite a historic name that doesn't overly fit us anymore. I mean, PC, personal computing, we don't even offer that anymore. We only do businesses. So we're changing to Global Technology.
Oh, cool.
Which just feels like a good fit for us. And so we've been a little bit slow to go into Auckland because there's no point going up there as Global PC. So once we can get that rebrand finished, and we're getting very close, then we'll go a little bit harder up there. But at the moment, that's been a nice reason to go slow as well.
Yeah. How are you finding that the whole, because there's I'm sort of going through the same process at the moment as well, where we've gone, okay, we've learned all these lessons. We've tried a whole bunch of things. Some of them have worked really well. Some of them haven't worked very well. We've kind of got a bit of a feel for where we sit, and the way that we're currently represented is who we were, not necessarily who we are now. But there's this like nostalgic, like drawing towards, and this is after us for 7 years. So I can't even imagine what it's like with 25 years. And, it's almost hard. Like there's an emotional element to it that's quite challenging, I've found. Like we probably let go of the yellow, but like the yellow's ugly, but I love the yellow. You know what I mean? It's that sort of relationship with almost the identity that's hard.
Absolutely. And we're going to change colours, and in the last minute we decided not to change colours because our industry is full of blue, which is what we are. But then they were like, you're just saturated with blue, and it was very good advice. But in the end, we just couldn't let go of the blue. Because we just need to keep something. But the brand is really strong. It can be both a positive and a negative for us here because we have such a good reputation under that brand, but at the same time, it's a wee bit linked to retail and a wee bit linked to selling hardware. And so that can be a wee bit of a headache for us at times because we can go to a corporate client and they might still see us as doing corporate IT as a bit of a sideline, whereas actually we're reasonably big in the market now.
Yeah, nice. And is there, are IT companies normally 18 people in Christchurch? Like that seems quite big.
I'm not sure. We would probably still be sitting in the smaller end, but we have a really strong client base. I think Mark came from CCL, which was absolutely huge, and some of the clients we've got are really sort of good, decent clients. I think for us, the clients that we want are the ones who want to invest in their IT.
Yeah, sure.
So we have a pretty wide sector of clients. But.
And every business is online in some regards now, so that at least it keeps the target pool growing. Nice, cool. And so I suppose probably an interesting thing to touch on is you throughout this journey, which has obviously had huge highs and huge lows, what would kind of be the biggest takeaway or the biggest thing that you've learned about yourself through this whole process be?
I think when I started with that decision of can I run this company, I just didn't feel capable. And I sort of thought to myself, I'll get capable, maybe. But I realised probably within the first year that I was capable. I just didn't have the confidence prior to that.
Sure.
And it's something I wish I had known years before. But as soon as I had to do it, I realised I could do it. And I'm actually not sure if I ever would have achieved as much as I have had I not been thrown into it like I was. Because it was not a decision I made. I just did it. And I remember probably for a good year, every time we grew, every time our figures were good, thinking, God, how are we going to keep doing this? And I was driving down Ferry Road, our offices are in Ferrymead, and I just had that kind of light bulb moment of, this isn't luck. Like, we're actually making good decisions here, and we are hiring the right people, and we're picking the right sort of suppliers, and all of that is creating something that's actually working. And it was that kind of light bulb moment of, wow, okay, I actually think I can do this. And it's not fluke.
That's and how many people do you think are out there that don't have the confidence to go that could do it? That's probably the biggest thing to take away from that. And in reverse, right, is there would be so much potential lost in just that stalling before acting. And
I think someone said to me pretty early on, it doesn't matter if you don't know everything. Might have been my dad, actually. Doesn't matter if you don't know everything, just as long as you know what you don't know, and then you make sure that you outsource that. And that's really good advice because you just can't know everything and you can't understand everything. But there's heaps of people out there that are really good at what they do, and you can bring them in.
And you also do find, I think you know enough to be dangerous at a lot of things after you do it for long enough. Like, my lot of things isn't a balance sheet yet, but I can do enough financially that I sort of get it, and it's not, ops, it's not this, but you sort of start to get a bit of a feel for a lot of stuff. I think that the other big thing is just not putting too much pressure on yourself to pick that up too quickly, because it does just take time. I remember I used to work in a supplement store. This was back when I was like 17, 18, and just by being there for a year, without like going home and researching anything, but I just naturally knew a lot of stuff about supplements just by like listening to the other people talk or hearing people or talking to a supplier or whatever. And I think for a lot of people, business kind of does the same thing. Is you go and you don't necessarily need to fake it. Like I think you can be pretty honest with people if you don't know what something is, but you will naturally learn over time.
Yes, and so many business principles like go across. Like because I'd worked in tourism, I'd worked for some massive companies, and Air New Zealand probably being, I worked under Rob Fife, and he was just such a vibrant, person to work under. And I think even though we were a little company, I still had all these principles that I had seen and learned. Even my first boss when I was 17 was an incredible boss, Ben, and he just had such amazing values and principles. Mm-hmm. So I could take all of that, and I think that's what everyone can doesn't matter what job you've done, there will be principles you've learned from that company or the good people in that company that you can then chuck in at whatever you're doing.
Yeah. And the thing that you probably cottoned onto, like you mentioned that story driving down Ferry Road, the thing that you cottoned onto is business is kind of the great equalizer. Like if you make bad decisions, it hurts. If you make good decisions, it feels good. And there are very few situations I can think of where someone makes bad decisions and it works out well, or makes good decisions and it works out badly. Maybe over a very short period of time, like maybe 1 month, but not 1 year, definitely not 5 years. So the company performing the way it is down to you guys running it and the people that you've got within it doing their thing. And it's almost pure in that sense. There's no arguing it. The numbers are the numbers.
And people sort of have this mentality of don't give up, but I almost feel like it's don't give up, but do change tactic if you really need to, because like sometimes you don't want to give up, but also you shouldn't keep doing what you're doing because it's not working.
Yeah.
And I think we have got really good in the last couple of years at realising when we may be going down a road that's not working and just going, actually, let's not invest any more time or energy into this and let's change tack.
Yeah.
And or saying no, like that, probably that was a bit of a lesson from Icehouse actually, that saying no is sometimes a really good strategy for your business.
Yeah.
And I think you can be scared to say no to opportunities or scared to say no to, whatever. And now we're not afraid to say no. I feel like actually that's not feeling good.
Yeah, I suck at that. I suck at that really badly. And I wind up in spots where, because it actually winds up working out bad for everyone involved, because you sort of like almost begrudgingly get along with your work. You're like, oh, all right, I'll do this, or especially if say you're hurting financially or something at the same time, you're like, I shouldn't really be turning down money.
And if you're
right
not a good fit for a client, then they're better with someone else.
100%.
And you're better taking that opportunity filled by someone who is a good fit for you.
Yeah.
And so I think that's been a really key lesson for us, and just with everything, with staff, with opportunities, with suppliers, being able to actually know it's not what we want to do or the direction we want to go.
Yeah. The other thing I've found, and you can probably relate to this a little bit with maybe the closing of the retail thing, but what I find is the challenges in making the decision. Like once the decision's made, it actually feels quite easy. It goes quite fast. It's nowhere near as painful, but the weight of like when you're not sure which way you're going and you're kind of turning up and your mind's really full and you're not as engaged with, I mean, the good example for me is like I'm going home carrying baggage from the day, so I'm not sitting down and playing with Archie's car or whatever with him because I'm built up. It compounds as soon as the process starts, or you make the decision, or you go, right, okay, we've got to do this. It's, I'm putting on my director's hat rather than my friend of these people's hat or whatever it is. It's really easy. It's really easy, and people get it when you're there usually as well.
And I think one thing I've learned with exactly that is if you're in the process and you're hesitating and you're carrying that baggage, then it's probably not the right road and you're just not quite afraid. You're still a bit afraid to stop going down it.
Yeah.
And as soon as you kind of go, actually, like with our rebrand, we talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, and then we came a lot up with the name Global Technology. Suddenly it just felt right and we were ready to run with it.
Yeah.
And it was just that the previous names or ideas or concepts hadn't been the right fit and they had just not, we'd had the hesitation there.
Yeah,
as soon as we had the right one, we were like, let's run with it. And we're really excited about it now because it feels like the right concept.
Yeah, and I think keeping enough of the enough of the nostalgic, enough of the, we've had some clients that have been long-term Christchurch businesses go through similar things, and we didn't handle the rebrand for them, but they sort of like, what do you think of this? And the message for them was like, make it modern, make it cool, make sure you feel good about it, but don't forget, that balancing act, especially for a Canterbury business. My experience with Auckland is that Auckland businesses couldn't care how long you've been down in Christchurch or how good you are down here. They only care about what you can do for them in Auckland. And so they probably won't have the same feeling. But in Christchurch, we care. We care a lot. There's this nostalgia with, I think of like Treaty.
We're still a small town in business, I think.
100%. And we act like that. We, very relationship driven. I've actually found almost quite forgiving at points off the back of that too. Like if someone turns up and they do the right thing by you and they do their best and they slip up, you're not just chalked. It's not game over. They're like, okay, explain to me what went wrong, explain to me what you're going to do to not do it again, and we're good. We'll continue forwards as long as you take accountability.
Yeah, I think the relationships are real,
yeah,
and honest and genuine.
Yeah.
And it will be very different for us going into Auckland. The clients we've got there, we've already had and been servicing from here, so it's going to be it's going to be different for us.
Yeah. As you pick up new ones, there's huge opportunity there. My experience, which may be completely different to yours, but is definitely that it has a transactional feel. That's probably the way I'd describe it. And we've got clients there who aren't like that at all, but we've got some that are.
And with our rebrand, funnily enough, we had to try and think of a vibe, and we were trying to think about the Auckland, and we were sort of like, we want a fun, colourful logo, but we also want to be boring and professional and look like we know what we're doing, and they are really conflicting themes, and we literally gave the PR company those two themes, and we're like, we know these are conflicting, and do with that what you want. And they were like, actually, we get it, because you do need to feel serious and professional, and but at the same time, it's okay to kind of have a bright pink logo or something like that, which is what they suggested, which we didn't run with. But
that's cool. It sounds like you got to look at all sorts of options, and the how you present a business side of things, I find so interesting. I definitely don't get the branding stuff yet. It's going to be interesting to see what I pick up as we go through the process with ours. I haven't even, once again, I'm still kind of stuck in that awkward limbo. I think it's almost time phase, but it'll be cool. We've just had a client go through it, and he's used someone that he's really liked, and I really like what this guy's come up with for them. So we'll probably just have a chat with him and see what he thinks, and go from there.
Yeah, and once you get the right concept, suddenly for us it's just become exciting.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, we can't wait to do it now, and that's probably the point that you'll hit when you find the right concept, and then you just be ready to let go.
Yeah, cool. Yeah,
because it is a bit of a let go. Like
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
And like, I hate our logo. Like that's the thing that's great. Like I see our website and I'm like, that's not us. And I see our logo and I'm like, that's not us. Like I look at everything, I'm like, this isn't who we are now. This is something I came up with when I was 21 years old with my family friend who put it together for us. And admittedly, they did a great job, especially for then. But
and for me, we had my husband's family, so my kids were like, oh, I don't know if I want to see it change. And then I actually let them know in advance of it going public that it was going to change, just so that if they did feel upset or sad about it, they had that warning that it was coming.
Yeah.
But actually they were great about it and completely agreed it made sense.
Yeah.
So, but it is sad.
Yeah. There's so much
exciting.
And I think that's it. I think it's just focus on the upside and
evolution.
Yeah. And that isn't letting go or letting down the past. It's sort of honouring it in a way, is making the business as incredible as it can be is the best way that you can do that. You can show what it is, which is that's really exciting.
Well, roughly the year we started, definitely the decade we started, we were just getting dial-up in New Zealand.
Things have changed. Things have changed. Something just out of curiosity, as we sort of head towards the tail end of this, how's AI impacting what you guys do?
It's definitely something we watch a lot. We use AI to make ourselves more efficient, and that's been amazing for what we can offer clients, particularly with security. The way we can monitor threats and things, just it's so much more efficient, and we can do so much more. But at the same time, a lot of our clients are worried about it or don't feel like they understand it. So there's a lot of pressure to learn about it and know about it, and we're watching it pretty intently.
Yeah.
But at the moment, we're just using it to our advantage.
Yeah, nice. Because it is, I suppose, especially from like a security perspective, it does create as many strengths as it does open up weaknesses. It's almost at war with itself in that regard.
Yes, and like I went to a Institute of Directors cybersecurity event recently where they were talking about a company that had 1,800 staff in, I think it was in Hong Kong, and they actually had a completely fake video Zoom calls with all of these scammers, and they got scammed out of like huge amount of money.
Yeah.
And they were completely AI generated, video. Literally, people thinking they were the financial controller thought he was talking to people, but because they had 1,800 staff, he just didn't know everyone by name or face. And they were saying that AI is a huge issue for those overseas countries, which is going to hit here at some point.
Yeah. Even just some of the stuff you see, like scrolling an Instagram reel now that's AI, it's just so real in comparison with what it used to be. We've got a business in AI. It's like I suppose it's kind of like a marketing assistant at the moment, and it's going to become more juiced up over time as more opportunities arrive and we develop it more and that sort of thing. But even that, they're looking at replicating me and having me a part of everyone's onboarding process. So you'll join a Google Meet with me, and it'll obviously be honest about it, but it'll be like, cool, you can either answer this 15 question list, or you can join a Google Meet with me anytime that suits you. I'll ask you the questions, take your responses, give you the feedback, help prompt the answers, that sort of thing, and then fill the form in for you. That sort of stuff just gets crazy once the future is now.
Yeah. It is crazy because it's so efficient, but at the same time, I think people are really afraid of that.
Terrified. My business partners in that venture, they just did some work with, I believe it was a power company that had a call center, and they basically had to go through and transfer all of their customers' gas accounts from one supplier to another that like bought a business or something and shut down one. So they're all going to be whatever the brand was now. And they had a meeting with them, and they're like, okay, so our current plan is we've got 50 cold callers who are going to make 50 calls a day. It's X people per day. We've got X people. It's going to take us, 200 days to get through our client list or whatever. They did it in 15 minutes. They just had an AI bot just make all the calls at the same time, change all the people over, and they just flagged anyone who had any questions they couldn't answer or anything like that. And those people got a manual callback over like a week following. Wild. I think there's a real reasonable chance that it becomes like fire or the wheel. Like I don't think makes humans redundant by any stretch.
No,
but
I don't think so either.
efficient.
I think that the human side of it is really important.
Yeah.
In some ways, I think the technology advancement is how we've grown so much, because 10 years ago, generally we had to get in the car, drive somewhere, service someone, and then drive back. Now we can generally do that remotely.
Yeah.
So we're not having all that travel time and all that downtime. And so we've been able to do a lot more work with the same number of people.
Yeah.
Because they don't have to drive somewhere to physically jump on someone's computer anymore. As long as they've got internet, we can remote in.
Yeah. Like those are the examples, right? And so it's just that, again, that's the way that I'm looking at it. And I think there's some pretty big leverage across that in automation at the moment.
And that's better service for them too.
Yeah, faster.
Yeah.
Because if my emails aren't working, I just want them to work again. I don't care whether you're here in person or whether you can do that from there. And if they can be back live in 5 minutes because you can remote it and make it happen, that's better. It's better. And I think that's where AI has, if it's used properly, the ability just to make things better. It will get abused, but so does everything else. So does, so it's just the way that it is. Cool. Any closing notes? Anything you want to talk about?
No, I don't think so.
Great. How'd you find that?
Yeah, it was good.
You survived? The nerves disappeared?
The nerves disappeared.
Nice. You did fantastic. That was awesome. I have a closing question that I ask all of the guests that have come on. If you could go back in time, maybe we say from when you sort of shut down the retail and that real transitional period, and you could change one thing about your journey since then to now, what would that one thing be?
I think actually that probably the thing that I have changed without probably realizing it is the motivation behind what I'm doing.
Yeah, right.
And why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Because when you go through something like a really big life experience like that, suddenly the things that matter are really different.
Yeah.
And suddenly, like, I was really sort of money-driven work when I was younger, suddenly I was working for the ability to have the flexibility to be home for my kids, have financial security so that I could be there for them. So suddenly my motivations were really different. And in some ways, I think that was hugely beneficial for me. It happened accidentally.
I don't know if your experience has been kind of similar to this as well. I've had this really big, I used to actually find doing large amounts of work or making hard decisions or doing things like that, like I almost resented having to make the decisions or do the things. And the biggest thing that I've found since having Archie is I don't feel like that about it anymore, because it like there's this, when you're, and I relate, like you bringing up the cars thing was what triggered this thought process for me. It's like, I love cars so much. I'd worked to buy cars for 5 years. That was it. I was like, and because I'm 25 and I want to drive this M3 or whatever it is. And so the only way to do that is to make enough money to be able to do that. And I can't do that if I go get a job. But that doesn't give you that like deep through to your core motivation that you like need, I think, to go through really hard things. It doesn't give
you contentment, I think, because it's very much about being in the moment, and you don't have a general satisfaction or contentment.
Yeah.
And I think now that my motivations are different, I have that general satisfaction and contentment in my life. And I still work. I still will always work. I don't think I'm someone that will retire. I sort of thought, 20 years ago, I thought I'd probably be winding down now. Yeah. But I feel like I've still got heaps left in me.
Yeah.
But my motivations for why I work as hard as I do are so different.
Yeah, right. That is, I not to the same extent as you, but I understand that quite deeply. And all of a sudden it's really funny because the material things, they kind of lose their, like, you like them, but you don't like them the way you used to. You don't really care about the whatever it was that sort of, got things moving in the past. The trips are great, but they're great because of who you're on the trip with, not because of the trip, whereas it used to be the trip or the, that's really cool. Thank you so much for taking the time. If someone liked what they heard from you, they want to keep up with you, are you LinkedIn?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Absolutely. Love to hear from anyone.
Yeah, great. And obviously check out, is it globalpc.co.nz?
Yeah, so it's globalpc.co.nz at the moment.
Yeah.
It will be globaltechnology.co.nz sometime probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Nice. That's really cool. Well, I look forward to seeing the rebrand roll out, catching up at some point in time, hearing how Auckland's going and all that sort of thing. Like I said, thanks so much for taking the time.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for having me.
No worries. If you've listened this far, thank you very much. Make sure you check us out across social medias. We're on Instagram, Facebook. Obviously, you can have a look at me on LinkedIn. Also, subscribe to Spotify, YouTube, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks so much.